What's going on, everybody? Hotep to the family, Ashe to all my people out there. Welcome back to another episode of My Unapologetic Perspective here on the Mighty Motivation Network, where we give our point of view of controversial topics from experience, history, and knowledge as African Americans. I'm here with my co-host. To the right of me is Shaquan Battle.
Hey.
To the right of him is Jerome Battle.
What up?
We appreciate all of the feedback that we got from last week's episode. A lot of people really talked about how they didn't know a lot of the information that we were giving out. And a lot of people said that they went back and watched previous episodes because I believe last week's episode really made people aware of the things that we were talking about. So
Absolutely.
A lot of great feedback, and we really appreciate everybody that even watched. You know, whether you watch a full episode or you just watch the clips on Instagram or Facebook, we appreciate everybody that tunes in and listens to us on any platform.
That's right.
Today's episode, we haven't done a sponsor in a while. Let's bring back the sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Serenity Sense, LLC, where we pride ourselves in providing all natural, clean burning wax melt products. We have a large variety of luxury scents to fit your individual preferences. We take pride in delivering our wax melts to you because we are passionate about creating unforgettable fragrances. Again, this is owned by my wife, Barisha Stevens. I have here strawberry pound cake, which goes into the vehicle. I'll let my co-host smell those.
I got this in the car right now.
I have tangerine passion.
Like that.
Wax melt. That's that tangerine passion. These are some of the newer products that she has. They're in a few stores. They are in the old Vista Food store and in Fruit Mountain store going towards the Peaks of Otter.
Tangerine
They're
passion.
there. I have here Sea Salt Orchard to go into the home as well. And she has a new carpet freshener that has just been released. And that smells great as well. So again, Serenity Sense LLC. You can follow her on Facebook at Serenity Sense and on Instagram at Serenity Sense.
The house can smell like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great smelling products. So we're gonna jump right into this episode. So today we really want to talk about the black visual. So the reason why I want to talk about this is because movies, TV shows, all of these things, you're starting to see people talk about how a lot of visuals are a detriment to the African American community.
That's right.
So we're here to talk about that today. Not only talk about the negative, we're going to talk about the positives of the black visual. We're going to talk about some things that we look to see in the future, more from filmmakers or people who are writing books or people who are doing art. We have to begin to look at the black visual. As we talked about previously on the episodes, when you walk into a classroom, you want to see those black pictures on the wall. For our kids out there, they really need to see a positive representation of themselves. That's right. So that's the reason why we want to talk about this topic. And I'm going to start with I'm going to give a chronology of history before we go into anything, because I want to bring you up to why this is important and why we should be looking as African Americans to create better and positive content by the African American and for the African American audience. So in the late 1800s, they had what they call minstrel shows. And the minstrel shows would be white entertainers who would paint their faces black, and they would outline their lips in red or something, whatever, to make their eyes look bigger and their lips look bigger, as you see the black face today. This was a known thing back in the day, where instead of casting black members, you would just paint your face black and you would do what they call cooning.
That's right.
And you would make fun of the stereotypes of African Americans. You would create stereotypes of African Americans, and you would degrade them on film. And in 1890, Thomas Edison created a peep show where he always degraded African Americans in visuals. One popular one was a race between two African Americans eating watermelon. And this just blew up. So everywhere you looked, on postcards, In the newspaper, there were pictures of African Americans eating watermelons. There were visuals of African Americans stealing chicken. So that created the stereotype of black people loving chicken and becoming criminals to steal chicken. There were images such as, you put a black baby in a tub and you try to wash the blackness off his face. Right. And no matter how much soap you use, you can't wash the blackness off, almost treating the blackness as if it was dirt.
That's right.
You had racist titles in these movies, included like the Three Pekingese, A Coon Cakewalk, Dancing Niggers, A Night in Blackville, The Coon and the Watermelon. I know some people may laugh at this, but this was a common thing in the late 1800s, early 1900s, where you seen these titles in these movies depicting black people in a certain way. And then out of that, you got the rise of cartoons. In the 1930s, cartoons, they would make black people be represented by monkeys, wide nose, thick lips, very dark skin complexion. The character probably was unintelligent or, doing some type of cannibalism, chasing around the white cartoon, making it seem like he was a rapist or something of that sense. And they began to control how African Americans looked at themselves and how white people should look at African Americans. And then rose the mammy, the big black woman that you seen with the head wrap on, where she represented the black woman that did the cooking, the cleaning, and she was devoted to being a second-class citizen. She was most notable images would be like on the syrup, Aunt Gemma. And in 1939, the movie Gone with the Wind actually won a Oscar because of the black mammy that was represented in that movie.
Right. Best supporting actress.
Best supporting actress, Hattie McDaniel. And in that movie, it kind of glorified that slaves was actually happy before the Civil War.
That's right.
And which is why a lot of people have taken that movie off the shelves. So even in movies where they actually casted black people, they made fun of themselves. They made fun of their culture. They made fun of their made up history. A lot of that stuff was not true and accurate, but it created African Americans in an image to hate themselves. Films portrayed African Americans to be irresponsible. There were a lot of movies where African Americans would be gamblers and they would basically gamble away all their money. They would commit senseless crimes. So, when we just think about those things in particular, people say, video games is hurting our kids. The way that music videos is hurting our kids. Well, think back in the 1800s and the 1900s and on up, how African Americans were portrayed in movies. Think about how that affected the African American kid when they seen, okay, this is who we are. This is what we're supposed to look like. Even in movies where, they're always the criminals, they're always the failures, they're always the athletes, or they're always only the musicians. We have to begin to look at that, and we have to change the narrative because TV is beginning to brainwash our kids, we say. So we have to begin to brainwash them in a positive way. So just going through that chronology, give me y'all's take on that.
You want to go first, Sean?
No, you go.
First, I think this is an excellent topic because you go all the way back to episode 1 or 2 where we first started talking about the black visual. Mm-hmm. Black kids being able to see images of themselves. Mm-hmm. So when you move from the classroom to the TV set or to the movie screen, you start thinking about what are my kids watching?
Right.
So before we get into that, let's talk about the classifications of blacks in movies really quick. Because there's 5 stereotypes that blacks usually play in roles in major movies or TV shows. The first is the magical Negro. Mm-hmm. Where the black is looked at as somewhat of a superhero, some type of superpower to the effect of when we think about the Green Mile. Mm-hmm. He was magical. Mm-hmm. The second one is the black best friend. So the main character is white,
right,
and he has a best friend that's black, mm-hmm. and that's usually the second stereotype role that blacks play in movies. The third is the thug. because obviously nobody can thug it like a Black American. So obviously that's how they view us. The angry Black man, the angry Black woman. So they put us in this role where they think we're actually able to play who we really are. If you think about Denzel Washington and you think about the first Oscar that he won playing the Black cop
in Training Day,
that role is completely different than what you probably think he probably should have won an Oscar for.
Yeah.
But he played that role, and some people believe it ain't like he was acting; he was playing himself. And in theory, maybe he was.
Right.
But obviously, that's how white America depicts us. That's how they view us. Quite naturally, also, that's how we view ourselves sometimes.
On John Q, I know Denzel played that role, but wasn't that guy really white?
If you think about it in terms of it being based off an actual movie, I think it was right. Something in real life. The fourth one is the angry Black woman, which kind of correlates with the thug. Right. We don't typically see women as thugs unless you think about what was the girl's name in Set It Off. They were kind of more like thugs and Set It Off, but obviously the angry Black woman is the fourth role, and then the last one is the domestic. Like you were talking about Mammy being the maid. Back in the day, I remember a TV show we used to watch called Benson. And it was a Black guy who was basically a butler. And, we viewed him as somewhat as a sellout, somebody working for, a white man as a butler, almost like a paid slave. But obviously the domestic is how white America views us in their film and TV.
Yeah, and we also get the image of Uncle Tom and Sambo during the history as well.
That's right.
In the movie, in the plays, in the Broadway plays, Uncle Tom's character is actually changed from the actual book. But it was more of a suck up. It was more of a sellout, when Sambo was the real sellout in the story, where he goes from the field and tell the master what's going on. So
that's right.
Sambo and Uncle Tom. So you have to be very careful on who you call an Uncle Tom, because originally Uncle Tom is supposed to be somebody who doesn't sell out the African American.
That's right.
I think like movies like Birth of a Nation that showed us, as uneducated.
Yeah.
A lot of times movies show us as uneducated. Or movies that men prey on white women.
Right.
That's right.
I think that was also in the Birth of a Nation as well. So a lot of times, these directors are not culturally sound to produce these movies because they paint us in the wrong light instead of the right light. But they don't know the history, so they're only going off what they know or what they've been told.
What are your thoughts on white writers and white directors telling Black history without Black input?
It was funny that you said that. I just seen the clip where Denzel said, what's his name? Scorsese can do different movies than somebody else, because I think if it's a Black producer, then he should do the Black movies, because he can go get educated and he knows how to pull from, like, when you see the picture of the woman you were just talking about with the head wrap.
Aunt Jemima.
Everybody has a grandma that looks like that, that you can pull from that, where a white person, they can't pull anything from that.
Right.
So I believe as a Black director, you can depict us in the right way, and you can go get more information and put it in there that Black people may not have knew.
You're going to have to be an awesome director to be able to direct, or an awesome producer to be able to produce a movie about a Black individual or Black culture when you're not Black. Right. It's going to be awful difficult, because you cannot put yourself in the shoes of a Black man or a Black woman or a Black culture if you're not Black. Now, I realize a lot of people go, well, you can still make a movie about it. Well, here's the thing about movies. Movies are based on perspective. They based on your interpretation of what you see. Well, if you're not Black, then you don't see it from the Black man's perspective or the Black woman's perspective. So that's going to be missing from that movie. Now, you can go out and you can interview blacks. You can go out, you can get black actors, and you can try to capture that, but nobody's going to capture that like a black director or a black producer. And not just movies. We can even talk about photographs. Often when white photographers take pictures of blacks, they don't understand that you're going to get that glare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to get that glare when you're trying to photograph a black versus a white. Now, a black photographer should know that going in. I'm going to get that glare, or I'm going to get that light and dark where I'm not going to be able to really see the facial features. That's because you're black, and you understand that because you've taken pictures. You've had pictures taken of you before, and you know how they look in the end. So even now, when you look at some of these podcasts, you see sometimes you can't see everything about our facial features, right? So as a producer, as a director, when it comes to movies and it comes to photography, you have to know those types of things. They ain't gonna teach you that in school,
Right.
You know, so having the experience of the culture helps.
Absolutely.
And then, the first episode I was on, you couldn't see that I had facial hair.
That's right.
Next episode, Big had a light right here because he understood, I got to bring out his features and his
That's
face.
right.
Absolutely. Great input. Continue on with a little bit more history. African Americans began to, create their own films on lower budgets. But the problem with creating their own films was it still had to pass a board of white people.
That's right.
So where they would make them take certain things out, they would or scrap the whole movie or put certain things in to try, because most black movies that started, of course, they wanted to challenge the racial discrimination of the Jim Crow era.
That's right.
But a lot of things had to be taken out of movies. A guy by the name of, I don't know how to say the last name, I'm sorry, but his first name is Oscar. But he attempted to make a lot of racial uplifting movies, but a lot of them were shot down. So in 1898, the movie Something Good, Negro Kiss, possibly the first black film, shows two lovers embracing in a sweet kiss. In 1910, two brothers, Peter and Bill Jones, created the first black comedy movies. In 1910 as well, William D. Foster became the first man to form a film production company, which he called Photoplay Company. In a moving picture, the Negro would offset so many insults of the race, could tell their side of the birth of their great race. And you had The Railroad Porter, was produced by a Photoplay Company in 1912. It is considered the first film with an all-black set. In 1915, film classic Birth of a Nation that you mentioned earlier, which had 13 white actors in blackface portraying African Americans, as you said, to be unintelligent. And this actually gave birth to millions of memberships of the Ku Klux Klan because they thought this was serious, that film. From 1915 to 1950, the genre called race films emerged, which was movies with black casts for black audiences, which offset racism and stereotypes. And in 1919, the movie The Homesteader was based off a book, but the plot had to be changed due to, in the book, the black man had an interracial relationship with a Swedish woman. And then Spencer Williams got his movie funded in 1941 by white investors called The Blood of Jesus. And we will talk about this a little bit later on why certain movies by black people are funded heavily.
Right.
Because it's pushing a certain agenda.
All of these names are black, right? Filmmakers that you're talking about.
Yeah, except for The Birth of a Nation.
That's right.
All of those are.
The irony is when you listen to, or when you start to look at black films in general, and we're talking movies, we're talking stage shows, we're talking TV. The very first images, blacks are treated as one or two things. Either you see them as being unintelligent, almost slave-like, or comedians.
Yeah.
Everything about us in the very beginning that you saw was about us being funny or unintelligent, one of the two.
And that both of them in an entertaining way to entertain.
Absolutely. But you also got to put in perspective who's spending money to watch these.
Yeah.
It's not black Americans.
Right.
So obviously this is what they thought that white people wanted to spend their money to watch.
Right.
I'm going to mention a character a guy named Lincoln Theodore Monroe Andrew Perry. Yeah, all those names. Stage name was Steppin' Fetchit. You guys may have even heard of him before. But Steppin' Fetchit would do these routines where he would basically make fun of black people. Okay. He had Jamaican and Bohemian descent. And so his accent was very strong, which he could make himself sound more unintelligent because of the accent. And he used that to his advantage. And a lot of people would say that the Stereotypes was harmful and negative. But in fact, he was the first to make $1 million from acting. So at the end of the day, he was able to earn a living that was probably more excessive than most blacks during that time doing anything else. So to say whether it was negative or not in terms of the race, yeah, we can argue that all day. He made a living. Later on in life, you would hear people like, and I'll mention him later on, Flip Wilson, who was one of the first blacks to have his own variety show in the 70s. Flip Wilson once said that without people like Steppin' Fletcher, you probably would not have people like Flip Wilson and Richard Pryor and Red Fox. Somebody had to be the butt of that joke first in order to see us on the screen to say, okay, that's not what we want to do. We want to be on the screen, but that's not what we want to do. So you had to have those derogatory images first in order to get to where we are today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. And we are back. Again, this episode is sponsored by Serenity Sense. Follow her on Facebook and on Instagram at Serenity Sense LLC. We're going to continue on with this topic. As you see, things are getting deep as we just went through a chronology of history. Also, hit the subscribe button on the Mighty Motivation Network on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button on the Mighty Motivation Network on YouTube. So let's talk about black movies for a second. Because they have positive in black films and they have some negatives in black films. So let's start with negative. What are some negative things that you guys see in black films that you kind of really want to see change?
Let you go.
For me, it would be like shows like The Chi, I think depicts, I think they do a great job of depicting black people. The Wire did a great job of giving us something we didn't see, because we don't know what's going on in Baltimore. But through The Wire, we got to see what was Baltimore like in the streets. We got to see what it was like politically. We got to see what it was like in the corrupt on the police force. We got to see how politics, police officers, and the newspapers all combined into one, and selling drugs. We wouldn't have known that had we not seen The Wire. The show on, I think it's on FX, called Atlanta. We wouldn't know what Atlanta is like. So I think having more black directors, more black productions that give us shows like Blackish. What's the spinoff of that?
God, I can't think.
Just more shows like that. Fences. Which is one of your favorite movies.
Absolutely.
Denzel played an incredible role on that. Just more stuff like that as black people that teaches us, instead of using us as uneducated, as a pimp, as a gangster. I think Tyler Perry does a great job of depicting what a black man is not.
When you look at movies or any images, I hate to associate the word negative with it. Because even when we talk about the halftime, Super Bowl halftime show, where it shows, you have women, grinding on each other on national TV, and we say, it's negative. That's not what we want our kids to grow up to be. It's not. Obviously, it's not. I think it's incumbent upon parents to have conversations with their kids and say, this is entertainment.
Right.
Okay. It is entertainment first. And then it can also be educational, because you don't have to be that person doing that particular thing to be successful. And I think sometimes we look at what people do as part of their success, instead of saying it's a successful person kind of doing something that they want to do. So we have to have these kind of conversations with our kids so that they understand what they're actually looking at. I'm gonna tell you a movie that had a little bit of negative, but they played it in a way that, to me, made it very positive and educational and entertaining at the same time. And you guys gonna laugh when I say the movie because we talked about it. Drumline. In Drumline, they hear the band come out, and I think they was playing, one of the latest songs, and one of those songs where people could groove to, they can bob their head because they knew the song, and everybody was vibing. And so when it was this particular band's chance to play, the guy said, "Yo, hit him with the Flight of the Bumblebee." And at first, everybody was thinking, "What is the Flight of the Bumblebee?" I've never heard that before. Intellect. That was a intellectual song. Right. Flight of the Bumblebee. Since that, you guys have probably heard Flight of the Bumblebee a million times since then, but at the time, you didn't know what it was. Right. So it was something that said, we don't know what that is. And then on the other side, we know exactly what that is now. So it's educational. It's one of those things where it made us look bad because we looked at that guy as a sellout. Right. But at the same time, he educated us. He taught us something. So when I look at movies, I want to look at it as terms of entertainment first. And then I try to decipher, is there something that I can learn from this movie? Even if it's fictional, is it something that I can learn from it? And I think that's how we need to have our young Black youth looking at entertainment in general.
And I agree with that. I believe you can get to a certain level where movies are just entertainment for you. You're not influenced by it.
That's right.
The same as rap music, the same as any other thing that we talk about. But parenting does come into a play, because I remember Menace to Society was my favorite movie, and I used to quote some things from Menace to Society until I was corrected, and after getting in trouble a few times because as a kid you're looking at that and you're kind of glorifying their lifestyle. I actually fell in love with rap music after I heard Dr. Dre Nothing But a G Thing.
That's right.
It wasn't the song, it was the six foes bouncing up and down.
That's right.
It was the lifestyle,
that
visual that I fell in love with. But I began, as I grew and had parents that would tell me, was this is entertainment, it is an education for you. But there are a lot of people out there who don't have that. They look at things. I mean, I'm not even talking about kids. There are 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds that still looking at rappers as educational and not as entertainment. And I'm talking about rappers that are 18 and 19 years old. You have to be very careful at what you follow and what you glorify. But again, like Shaquan said, in white films, we were always depicted as thugs, gamblers, criminals, pimps. And I believe that the Black director should have took note and said, okay, we've had enough of this. We have to begin to look at some of the way to portray, who we are. The second thing is watching movies with my daughter. And my daughter likes a lot of the old classics that I used to love growing up.
Like Friday.
Yeah, but I like watching movies with my daughter that I've already seen. Because before the movie turns on, I know what parts I need to fast forward.
That's right.
But if you watch a new movie, it's almost like you're on pins and needles trying to find out what's about to happen here. And I'm not even talking about adult movies. I'm talking about rated TV 14.
That's right.
Rated PG-13. I was like, what's about to happen here? Is this about to be a 2-minute slow motion sex scene that I gotta, fast forward? Yeah. Is it about to be a zoom on the Black woman's butt that's walking by that's going to be there for 30 seconds as they pan the camera there? It's like, wait a minute. What do I have to watch here? And I believe that filmmakers have to understand what their audience is and who's going to be watching that film. We can do without some of the pornography that's in some of the movies, especially the Black movies, because what we consider hood classics are something that we're going to continue to go back and watch, and it's something that we want to introduce our kids to. But sometimes we can't because we know those parts are there.
Not just movies, but video games. You remember the first time you guys had Grand Theft Auto?
And you can pick up strippers and all
and the noise of them in the car and what the You know,
Yeah.
it'll drive you crazy because
Yeah.
now you have a video game that's showing those early visuals
Yeah.
of sexual contact.
Right.
And it's in a car.
Right.
You know, so obviously not just movies, but also video games as well. Music too. I mean, I remember that when you guys were kids, I had to listen to all this crazy music from all these different rappers because I need to know what the hell they was talking about before you guys listened to it. So thank God I don't have to do that anymore because I hate some of that music. But you have to, I'm like you have to know what's coming before you expose your kids or your grandkids to it. And it's tough because it comes from so many different angles. I mean, everybody and their brother making rap videos and rap songs now. Yeah. You can go on YouTube and get the latest, but you don't hear any of that on the radio.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful of what your kids are listening to or watching because those early visuals can come in so many different forms and fashions.
Even now on YouTube and prime television like ABC, they have soft sex scenes.
That's right.
Well, you don't even have to look at that. If you have TV and you watch, let's say you watch football, Sunday football.
That's right.
The main commercials are beer commercials, food commercials, and they try to make that as sexy as possible.
That's right. That's
so
right.
You know the girl on there half naked eating a cheeseburger or drinking a beer. Sexual comments are made. So we're starting to see little things being thrown out as visuals for our people. The one that bothered me, and I didn't think about this till years later, was in high school, people loved the reality show Flavor Flav.
Oh, God.
Flavor Flav. Not just black people, white people love this show. And I started thinking about it years later. I was like, they were laughing at him, not with him.
Absolutely.
Because you think about that show, it was him trying to find a woman, which people know behind the scenes he was probably sleeping with all of them. But it just shows the pimp nature. It shows the groupie nature. It shows the need for fame for certain black people and that was unintelligent.
It showed the contradiction because if you listen to Public Enemy,
he's the revolutionary.
Public Enemy was one of the first rap groups to talk about black awareness.
Yeah.
They were the first, if you will, awoke black rap group that was trying to awaken the black reality, the black culture, the black mind. Yeah. And this guy was at the front and center of that. And then that. Yeah. And, I know Chuck D was like, oh my God.
And it was made fun of how black he was, how ugly he was, and how these women, why do they want him?
That's right.
It was just a bad look. And then you think about what Flavor Flav started. You had, after him, you had people from his shows going on Find a Man, Ray J, and now we have Love and Hip Hop and all of this other drama that's just going on in the black community, and people eat it up on stuff that a lot of the drama is made up drama.
That's right.
It's just showing that, okay, these are the angry black women fighting in the streets, angry black men fighting in the streets, and it's horrible. Meanwhile, on ABC, you got The Bachelor, and they got suits on, and they courting the woman or the man, and now it looks more professional. But we go over here to Flavor Flav, this the ghetto side of
The
Bachelor.
You go to VH1, you get the ghetto version of The Bachelor.
That's right.
That's what it is.
Absolutely. Let's talk about positivities in the black films. Some of the things that I love is, of course, it allows African Americans to be portrayed in different ways. Black stories, especially Black history stories that we can see on film. For probably the past 10 years, another positive is we're starting to see dark-skinned black women get casted as the main cast member of movies.
That's right.
A lot of if you go back to the 90s and the late 80s, it was mostly light-skinned black women that were casted as these main roles. Now we're starting to see different hairstyles. You don't have to have your hair straight. You can wear your hair in the afro. You can what's the show Insecure, where the girl, she braids her hair up in different type of styles. It's Ray. You're starting to see young black actors being paired with the older black actors. You start to see the Jamie Foxx and the Michael B. Jordans together. You start to see the Denzel Washingtons and the Ashton Saunders together. Samuel Jackson and Jesse Usher Viola Davis and Aja King. You're starting to see those mentoring roles, not only for the film, but it's showing the audience, okay, you have to be able to bring in the younger people and show them the way. So we're starting to see the father figure shows. If you look on Netflix, Marlon Wayans has a show where he's a father. Jamie Foxx, Mike Epps now, Anthony Anderson, Keenan. They all have shows where they're the black fathers. And the Keenan show, his wife actually dies, and he's the black father that's taking care of the household. So we're starting to see more true culture, the heritage, again, the hairstyles and the language more in black movies that I'm loving.
Absolutely. I mean, when we talk about the father figure, it's funny because one of the first black comedies that I ever watched was Sanford and Son.
Right.
And completely different when you watch Blackish, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Red Fox was one of the first comedians to break through on national television, and he had that sitcom that ran for a while. Mm-hmm. And for those that don't know, Red Fox was a straight comedian and was one of the raunchiest. And the reason that he became popular is because he would say anything.
Right.
Cursing was a big part of his stage presence. But it also sparked the careers of people like Richard Pryor. Mm-hmm. And for those that know Richard Pryor, probably didn't realize that he also had his own talk show, his own variety show.
And they cut that off very quick.
It didn't last but 4 episodes.
Cut that off quick.
And he got his start because Flip Wilson had his own show, mm-hmm. who was the first black variety show. And Richard Pryor was one of the guests and one of the writers on the show. And he wanted to curse. And Flip Wilson said, no, there will be no cursing. I need a check. And so when Richard Pryor performed one day, he cursed. Mm-hmm. Flip Wilson said, you want to curse? Get your own show. Bam, kicked him off. So he got his own show, last 4 episodes. You know? So, but the fact that he had a show for 4 days, knowing what was going to happen, white America, because that's who controlled the media. This is NBC. We're not talking cable. They didn't have cable, ladies and gentlemen. So we're talking NBC. They gave him the show because they said, you know what? If that's what you want, and we think that viewers are going to watch it, let's see what happens.
Right.
You know? And so they experimented with these type of shows. And from that, you ended up with Montel Williams later on with his own talk show. But that's where you get the Huxtables later on. That's where you got the Jeffersons, and that's where you got Good Times. Mm-hmm. So without Red Fox and Sanford and Son, you don't get those.
Right.
Without Richard Pryor, without Flip Wilson, you don't get those. Mm-hmm. Going back to Step and Fetch It, without him, you don't get those. Mm-hmm. So without Mammy, you don't get those.
Right.
So somebody had to be that sacrificial lamb. Somebody had to be that embarrassment. Somebody had to be that stereotype in order for us to make it to where we are today. Now, is it good? No. Did we make it good? We are. Yeah, we are.
Mm-hmm. And just to piggyback off of that, for me, shows like Fresh Prince of Bel Air, Martin, the Jamie Foxx show. The Jamie Foxx show, the family owned a hotel.
That's right.
Yes.
And in one of the later episodes, they told Jamie when he was going for a role that, you know, your ancestors were the first cowboys in Texas.
Yeah.
That's
so they had to give, through that whole episode, they gave him a history lesson on the family to go play that, go try out for that role. But like shows like Martin, which we still watch today, and I know y'all gonna bring up, especially Bake A Different World.
That's right, absolutely.
Just shows like that.
It's just speaking off that real quick is also it gave white America a sneak peek of how blacks feel. Mm-hmm. So we go back to Sanford and Son. I don't know how many episodes you guys ever watched, but there was a white police officer that will always come, and he would say things, and then they would look at the black police officer. He would translate.
Yeah.
Right. And then they would say something. The white police officer look at the black police officer. He was translating. Yeah. That tells you right there was a difference in how we communicated. Mm-hmm. So that's important because even today, that's a huge problem that white America, especially law enforcement, do not understand how we communicate. And we don't necessarily understand how they communicate. So that was huge. But if you move forward to some of these other, even just the sitcoms, on the Jamie Foxx show, they talk very intelligent.
Right.
You know, you didn't have, Jamie was probably, Braxton talked intelligent. The aunt talked intelligent. Fancy talked intelligent. Yeah. You know, so they gave us a different view of how black people should be or could be or in general are. So we're not idiots. We're not all comedians. We're not all singers. I had somebody tell me the other day they hate watching some of the commercials that black people are in because all we do is sing. Hey, those folks are earning a check. And I tell you what, you do that McDonald's commercial, I'm going to get a Big Mac. You know, so at the end of the day, I think these people want to earn a living. And I had somebody say one time, well, they had us depicted as clowns. They did. But I tell you what, you can call them Uncle Toms, you can call them clowns, but I work customer service to a degree. And in customer service, you're about as fake as it gets. You know, if you work at Walmart and you tell somebody, hey, how you doing? You don't really care about that because they can say I'm having a crappy day and you go, oh, sorry to hear that, $16.50.
Right.
They don't care. So as customer service, you are probably as fake as those individuals that were doing those clowns and not making nearly as much money as those folks are. They earned a living. So I'm not going to knock them. Yes, it's a negative image. It portrays us in a negative light. But they earned a living for them and their families. And then we piggybacked off of that.
Right.
To create what we have today.
And Steve Harvey is one of those people, but Steve Harvey has opened up the doors for a lot of African-American comedians that has came behind him. So, you know, he has made a lot of money in white America by what we consider sometimes cooning.
That's right.
But he has opened the doors. Like you said, somebody has to be the sacrificial lamb sometimes. And sometimes it just have to be him. But when you look back at Good Times, you got a chronology of the growth of African-American filmmaking from those sitcoms. Because if you go from Good Times, where you're crowded into one apartment, which was Cabrini Green, and then you move towards the Jeffersons. So now you're in a deluxe apartment.
That's right. You moved up.
And then you moved up. And then you go to the Cosbys, where now you got a whole house.
That's right. You got a brownstone.
Now you can move the camera into the kitchen. You can move it in the living room. You can move it upstairs.
Absolutely.
You can move, Dr. Hustable had his own office.
That's right.
You know, and then you move to a different world to where you got a whole college campus now.
Absolutely.
So now you just seen just in years how black film or black sitcoms just transformed everything.
That's right, because you're only talking about 15 years.
Yeah.
You're not talking about 30 or 40 years. We've only been in TV for about 70 years.
Right.
So you're not talking about a huge time span.
So, absolutely. I guess before we get in this, I want to take a quick commercial break because I don't want to go over the time. So we want to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. And we are back. Again, go to the YouTube channel. Subscribe, Mighty Motivation Network. Go to the Facebook, Serenity Sense LLC. Instagram, Serenity Sense LLC.
Comment on the videos.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to continue to go on, and we're going to talk about influential TV shows, movies, or that are actors and directors that are important for the African American community. I'll start because Shaquan said it earlier.
You've been waiting on this. You've been waiting. You've been waiting for a couple of months.
I have seen it on your.
I know my parents love me.
You've been waiting for months.
Hey man, you know, Different World is one of my favorite sitcoms. But it captured a HBCU. It captured intelligent students who were fighting social, racial injustice outside of the classroom. So you got black students, and then you had black professors as well. And then you've seen those black students become black professors at the same college. So it was monumental to see blacks, you know, in that light. And I don't know what the statistics may have showed, but I can guarantee that Different World probably increased college admission for the African Americans from the way that show captured everything from inside the classroom to outside the classroom. And we've seen from a freshman, you know, somebody like a Dwayne Wayne grow into Kanishiwa, you know, in the last season to where he's he was a math major. A math major. He was great at math. Colonel Taylor was the teacher of math, in which, you know, Dwayne Wayne was kind of scared of going into his classroom. You had Ron, who was part of a fraternity. You had Freddie, who was just different. She had a vibe. You saw different cultures. You saw different people, because when you go to college, it is a culture shock.
That's right. You also saw that light and dark skin thing with what's her name, Kim.
Kim.
Yeah,
Kim wanted to be a doctor.
That's
so
right.
Kim was trying to be a doctor. She was also working for what is the guy's name in the that controlled the kitchen?
Was it
wife was Velma. I can't remember what his name was.
Was it Walter?
No, Walter was Sinbad.
It was Chef something.
Yeah, but so many, even like somebody like Sinbad, who played kind of the mentoring role of being the college dorm person. Just so many great things happened. So many star people came through and embraced their political stances. They authors and poets and all of these things. It was just a great show of our history and our culture.
Yeah, I like the fact that it was really the first introduction to HBCUs in television. Actually, that was my introduction to HBCUs.
Right.
That's when I first really started learning about historical Black colleges and universities. And it was a spinoff from one of my favorite, which was The Cosby Show. You know, and I know a lot of people looked at The Cosby Show as being corny. And it was. You know, everybody wanted Theo to come home with a DUI. You know, they wanted some realistic things that applied in their neighborhood. But obviously, Bill Cosby took it an entirely different direction because he wanted to give those positive images.
Right.
He didn't want to use the negative images. Right. And I thought that was unique because we hadn't seen that before, especially in a sitcom.
No, not when he's a doctor and Claire's a lawyer.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people viewed him as America's dad. Now, again, we're talking about Bill Cosby, the entertainer,
right?
Not Bill Cosby, the person. But he taught us a lot of lessons. One of my favorite was when he was trying to teach Theo about finances, and Theo wanted to have his own place, and he had a job and he had money, and Bill was trying to tell him, well, how much is your rent? $400. Let me take that. And he said, well, you want to eat? Yeah, give me $200. I'll eat fast food. Give me $100 back. You have a girlfriend? Yep, give me all that. You got nothing, you know? So at the end of the day, that was a learning experience that I actually used some of that in teaching you guys, you know? So he gave us those positive images about not who we were, but who we could be.
Yeah.
And I thought that was huge because at that time, prior to that, all we saw was bad. Mm-hmm. You know, Michael Evans, his mom, you know, Florida was always a giving mom. She was always giving and giving. And one time said, yeah, we gave that away. And Mike said, yeah, that's why we ain't got nothing now.
Yeah.
You know, always giving away. So that's who we were. We were that poor family. We were the Evans, you know, but looking at the Huxtables, we had an opportunity to see us as who we could be.
Yeah.
And I thought that was huge.
That's fire.
To piggyback off of that, for one of mine was The Cosby Show, mainly because of, like I said, the lesson you just talked about. I remember you giving me that lesson at 16 when I was working at Walmart. So that's why that's vivid. But for me, it was how Bill Cosby fathered the kids. Mm-hmm. You know, when it came to the girls, most of the time he would let Claire handle it. When it came to Theo, he would handle it. So, and then they was in a big house.
That's
so
right.
So as a Black kid sitting at home watching it, it was like, man, we could have a big house like that I get older, or I could father like that. The other one is the Fresh Prince. Uncle Phil was really hard on them.
That's right.
And a lot of my parenting comes from Uncle Phil. The way he stayed on them, and then the way he stayed on them, but then how he would come back and love them.
That's right. That's right. That's Lyric's favorite, right? One of her favorites.
Love the Fresh Prince. When you look at the Fresh Prince, you look at season 1, then you look at the last season, and you just seen how much Will grew. Because, you know, Will Smith coming from Philadelphia, you know, with just his mom, you know, Uncle Phil took on the father responsibilities, which is one of people's favorite episodes, is when Will Smith's real father comes back. And most people, you know, they champion Will Smith for his acting in that part, which is true.
That's right.
But what Mark, I liked is before Will even steps in the room, where Uncle Phil was telling his father that if, you know, Will is a growing man, you need to be here. And Uncle Phil took on their responsibilities. He was a judge. You look at the jokes about Carlton, that Carlton was going to go to Princeton. You look at, you know, the way he treated, you look at Hillary. Hillary was a spoiled Black girl.
That's right.
You know, so when you look at the things that Fresh Prince showed, it showed again what African Americans could be. But it was more of bringing in this kid, and the only thing that he needed was a family.
That's right.
And another thing that I love is whenever his mom showed up, she would always say, whatever they tell you to do, you do.
That's right.
Don't let me find out you're not coming back here to Philly.
That's
Ain't
right.
nothing here for you. So she put her son in the best opportunity.
Will also made in Fresh Prince, he also made being smart cool.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
He made being smart cool.
Yeah, so when you look at a young knucklehead coming in from Philly, and then at the end, he goes to college, graduates college, and gets married, you just seen the growth of Will Smith through the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. One of mine is, people laugh about it, but when you look at it, it shows, which is The Lion King. The Lion King was a symbolism of African pride. Right. Even if you think about the first scene of, Mustafa holding Simba up, goes back to Roots. When we look at Roots, where, Kunta Kinte holds Kizzy up. When we begin to look at the things like everything the light touches is ours, but if you go beyond the light, then it's danger out there. And that was symbolism, because at one time in Africa, they were told not to go to certain places because Europeans could capture them. When you look at Rafiki was like that spiritual elder, the way that he would, take those things and put it across Simba's face, and then, the way he would take the thing and say, oh, Simba's still alive. That is spirituality at its finest in Africa. And even if you look at Mufasa being in the sky, talking to Simba, that's ancestors. That's the way that you connect with your ancestors. I'm always going to be with you. I'm always going to be watching you. So when you look at The Lion King, it was a symbolism. Not only it was based off in Africa, but it had Africa symbolism all through the movie.
Absolutely.
This is why I love it.
Absolutely.
You look at Princess and the Frog, a black princess in Disney. Amazing. Even if you look at the Disney World commercial now, one of the first pictures that you see is the black princess spinning around. So little black girls can go into Disney World and say, I can be a princess because I see somebody that looks like me that is a princess. I don't have to dye my hair blonde or, paint my face white to look like Esther to be a princess. Family matters.
Yeah.
Carl was a police officer.
Absolutely.
Then there's one episode where Carl actually checks one of his white co-workers because he pulled over his son in a prejudiced way.
That's right.
The Boondocks.
The Boondocks.
Animation.
Absolutely.
Where you seen Huey was a radical, and Huey always spoke the truth.
That's Huey was before his time.
Way before his time.
I got one. Smart Guy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Smart Guy. It was black father and 3 kids on his own. I think the mom had died, but he had a smart son,
smart daughter,
fast daughter, and I don't want to say dumb son, but he cared about music, and sports more than he cared about school. And to watch him balance all 3 of those personalities, and then balancing the 4th, which was Mo,
right? Yeah,
how he handed that. It showed him waking up in the opening. Episode 1 was him in the kitchen making the kids lunches for school.
I got 2, and this is the same act in both. So first, I'm gonna go Fences, and the reason that I love Fences is because you had a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
give him the famous line off.
I'm gonna give you the famous line because that line is so true, and I think a lot, especially black men, need to understand this line. But just to set the stage real quick, is you had Denzel playing the part of showing all the things he went through, all the struggle and frustration that he went through. And he had the opportunity early on to play professional baseball. And of course, he lost that opportunity because now it's time to have a family. And so he sacrificed. And a lot of the movie, he talks about his sacrifice. And you could see and you can hear the frustration. And some points, it almost sounded like resentment towards people because he sacrificed. And you could start seeing it seep out. And there's parts where, of course, we talk about how some of those fears and some of those sins of our forefathers kind of carry over to, the kids and the other family members. And you could start seeing where his son felt some resentment or felt like his dad had some resentment. In one scene, he says, because you don't like me. I know you don't like me. And Denzel said, you worried about whether I like you or not? You ought to be worried about whether I do right by you or not. The same with a teacher or a manager or anybody in society. You shouldn't care about whether they like you. Are they doing right by you is what you ought to concern yourself with. But he also found out that he wasn't the only one who sacrificed. He found out that his wife also sacrificed and she was right there with him, which I thought was a good family unit movie up until that point. Of course, we know the whole story, how it played out, but obviously that's what Black families do. They try to stick together. The other one was Glory. And I ought to mention Glory because if you had to give Denzel Washington an Academy Award for anything, it should have been for Glory because the role that he played, he was the antagonist to other Blacks for a long time throughout. And then as time went on, you saw that his attitude quickly changed because he started to understand, you know what? I'm wrong. I'm clowning them the same way that these white people are clowning them. I need to stop. I'm causing dissension. And he was causing it out of hate, out of pure hate. But there's a one scene where he gets whipped. And his facial expression almost, and for those that say Denzel can't act, I want to know how many people watched that scene and didn't either get angry or teared up. Now, you can blame it on the pollen if you wanted to, but at one point you probably felt some tears because he took that whooping. But at the same time, I think America took that whooping along with them. And to me, that was powerful. That movie, that scene, because also throughout the whole movie, you saw where it divided families but united unlikely friends. And I thought that was amazing.
You know what's crazy is that movie. I can't remember nothing else from that movie, but that part where the tears coming down Denzel, it's embedded in my mind. I can't remember nothing else about that movie but that.
Absolutely. He played the part in that. Coming to America 2, you know, just the seeing African Americans in that light was huge. So you look at Coming to America, you know, this African comes to America and he's treated like royalty. You know, even if when King Joffrey shows up, it's like in Harlem or in New York, it's like this, your majesty is here.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? This is the power that we have. And then Coming to America 2, you know, a lot of people didn't like the plot. I didn't care less about the plot. I was looking at the Africanness that was in the movie, the family atmosphere that was in the movie, the great Black actors that was in the movie. And then, of course, Black Panther. I've talked about this on previous episodes. The way Black Panther was way more than just a superhero movie. It captured so much. You know, I talked about, you know, darker skinned Black women being in movies now. Black Panther, they made it their point to try to cast dark skinned women.
That's right.
There were even light skinned women who turned the movie down to say, no, you go cast darker skinned women. So just that movie in general just did so many things. When we begin to look at actors, Sidney Poitier, well, you know, one of the things he did, he was the first African American to kiss a white woman on screen. On Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, first interracial kiss film in U.S. in 1967. He began his career with Raisin in the Sun, the Broadway play that attracted a large Black audience. It was based off a poem by Langston Hughes, which is why we show that writers and filmmaking go synonymous. So we have to begin to bring some of these visuals to the screen because a lot of these African-American writers did such a great thing that we just need a visual of it now. He played a number of roles dealing with racism. You talked about Fences. James Earl Jones also played in the play of Fences.
That's right.
Where he did an incredible job. And he also played in one of my favorite movies, The Lion King, that Mustafa voice, that Black presence. But he was the first Black to play a president on film, which is huge because a lot of people had to look at that and say, it's possible that we can have a Black president. But his voice is in many documentaries. You look at, you know, his African presence as the father figure role in most of his movies. And he's been acting over 70 years. Imagine acting over 70 years.
And to us, he's looked the same.
Yeah. When you talk about Blacks in film, you want to name a few people. You named Hattie McDaniel, who was Mammy in Gone with the Wind. But there was a Moms Mabley, Pigment Markham. Josephine Baker.
Yes.
And I think just the name alone probably inspired you to do a little research about Josephine Baker. But she was the first Black woman to star in a major motion picture in 1934. She was also equally known for what we always talk about, civil rights.
Yes,
she was she was big in civil rights. Dorothy Dandridge. I know a lot of people probably saw some movies or TV shows about her. She was the first Black actress nominated for Academy Award for Best Actress, starring in a 1954 film called Carmen Jones.
Yes.
She's also the first Black woman to be on the cover of Life magazine. So
the first Carmen Jones was Black?
Yeah, Dorothy Dandridge.
That's crazy.
Dorothy Dandridge.
I never knew that.
And Cleopatra.
That's right. And Cleopatra. Eltha Walters, 1962. Oh, Scott Waters, the first Black actress to receive, nominated rather for an Emmy for a guest appearance on the Goodnight Sweet Blues episode. Cicely Tyson.
Yes, Cicely.
That's right. First, I'll be honest with you. Before Roots, I saw Miss Jane Pittman.
Yes,
1974.
You talking about somebody who played Black history roles incredibly. Cicely Tyson did, and she always had that grandmother.
Absolutely. Role. Absolutely. You know? She was another one that I don't remember movies where she didn't play an older lady.
Right.
And she was that first Black image of seeing Black people stand up against racism. And for those that never seen Mary Jane Pittman, you need to go check that out. Diane Carroll, first Black actress star to own her own TV series. Very first, 1968. I wasn't even born yet, Paul Robeson, mid 1930s. He was in movies like Showboat and King Solomon, Sidney Poitier, In the Heat of the Night.
In the heat of the night.
Okay, you guys are laughing because my mom loves him In the Heat of the Night, the movie and the TV show. So In the Heat of the Night was huge. He also won an Oscar. Sidney Poitier won an Oscar. But just some other names that you guys may have heard, and if you get a chance, Google, check it out. Lena Horne, Harry Belafonte, Ozzie Davis, Ruby Dee, Noble Johnson, Sammy Davis Jr.
Hold on, before you keep going, Ruby Dee was big for me because she looked just like my grandmother.
Absolutely, she did. I love Ruby Dee. Butterfly McQueen, James Edwards, Pearl Bailey, Cab Calloway, Brock Peters, Black Cowboy.
Yes.
Any of the movies, old westerns you see, and there's a Black Cowboy, Brock Peters is probably in it. And there's another guy that's in it as well. Canada Lee, Woody Strode is the other Black Cowboy. So whenever you watch these old westerns and you see Black Cowboys, it's probably one of those two. Ruby Dandridge, Matthew Stymie Beard, Billy Buckwheat Thomas. Buckwheat, yeah.
I was going to say Billy D. Wood.
And then another Black that played in the Gone with the Wind that people probably overlooked is Oscar Polk. He played a major role in Gone with the Wind. So these are just people who were prevalent in Black films back in the day that paved the way for people like a Denzel Washington. Yeah. So without these folks going through what they went through, you probably don't get that.
Yeah. I'll throw in Morgan Freeman as well.
That's right.
What he did with Lean on Me. And then, he played the president in a few movies, which were big. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. And we are back. Again, go to the YouTube channel, Mighty Motivation Network, hit the subscribe button, and catch up on all the latest episodes. So we just talked about a few actors. There's a few writers, producers, and directors that I want to talk about briefly as well. I don't know how to pronounce this last name, but his first name is Oscar.
I can't pronounce it either. I ain't gonna try to screw it up.
I don't want to mess it up, but if you want to Google it, Micheaux. Micheaux, maybe? I don't know. But he, the genre of movies during the Jim Crow era that were created for and by Black people. He was an African-American author, film director, and independent producer of over more than 44 films. His company, Lincoln Motion Picture, was the first movie company owned and controlled by Black filmmakers. He regarded as the first African-American feature filmmaker, a prominent producer of race films. Many of his films featured all Black cast, and his characters were not stereotypical, unlike the blackface seen in more mainstream white films. He tackled subjects such as racial violence, rape, economic oppression, discrimination within his work. Which led to somebody now the name of Gordon Parks, which became the first major black director in which you've seen the movie Shaft. Shaft was a black hero with the revolutionary look that made black beautiful on television. John Singleton, all of those who know the name, gets a lot of flack because he captured a lot of black reality. Now, I'm not going to blame him because it needed to be showed. He brought that into white America and placed it in their backyards when movies like Boys in the Hood to show this is what's going on in the other part of LA.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? This is, when you're at Beverly Hills, this is what's going on the other side. Right. You know what I mean? And I believe he was monumental, and I believe he was the James Baldwin of filmmaking. And he brought white America to poor black communities. The only problem was too many people behind him tried to do the same exact thing, and now that's why we have too many hood movies.
That's right.
But his resume is Boys in the Hood, the new show Snowfall that people love, Baby Boy, Higher Learning, and Poetic Justice. Spike Lee, he did Malcolm X, Do the Right Thing. Loved his last movie, The Five Bloods and the Black Klansman.
Is that a Spike Lee movie? Dang. Were they I think they in a fraternity?
Yep, School Days.
School Days.
School Days, capture the fraternity, Get on the bus. Huey P. Newton story. So he captured a lot of revolutionary black stories.
Absolutely.
And I love Spike Lee's movies. One of my favorites is actually Anna at Miracle at St. Anna, which captured the black soldiers in World War II. I don't know how to pronounce his last name either, but her first name is Ava DuVernay. Selma, When They See Us, the Central Park 5 story that she did an incredible job with on Netflix, and Queen Sugar. And she also was a producer on the great documentary 13th, which talks about prison and being the new slavery. Ryan Coogler, Black Panther, Creed, Fruitvale Station, Judas and the Black Messiah. Just an impressive black films already.
That's right.
And then Jordan Peele, we know the great work he's been doing with stuff like Get Out and Us. And he also was one of the writers on Lovecraft Country, which was a great show that actually made black people go back and do a lot of black history research.
Issa Rae, who got her own show.
Issa Rae.
Just signed a deal for more shows.
Absolutely. So we're starting to see a lot of new black directors, producers, and writers that are really bringing beautiful visuals to our screen.
That's right.
Let's see.
Something else I've realized, I didn't know this beforehand, but when you talk about Oscars, Academy Awards, there were over, since 1929 or some crazy number, since 1929, there's been over 3,000 awards given. Only 43 have went to blacks.
That just goes back to show you, again, as we talked about earlier, the money that's put behind certain black movies.
That's right.
Has an agenda. And we talked about the Oscar for playing Mammy.
That's right.
We know the roles that white America wants to give black people and the way that they want to portray black people. And it's not in the beautiful visuals.
If you even think about the latest one, the guy that played the villain in the Black Panther movie.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah. No. The joint where he portrayed
Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yes. He got nominated for an Oscar for betraying him.
Best supporting actor.
Yeah. So obviously, it appears that the moviegoers love to see black people play these roles. Yeah. Either the Mammy types or the Denzel Washington in Training Day, the bad guy. What's the one with the lady?
Oprah Winfrey in the one where she's beating her daughter constantly.
Absolutely, yes.
I can't think of what the movie name is.
I mean,
Precious.
Yes. So they love seeing us in these negative lights.
Not Oprah Winfrey, Monique. I'm sorry.
Yeah, to the point that they want to give us Oscars when we play those bad roles or those roles that show us in a negative light. Mm-hmm. And obviously we're some good actors to be able to do it.
Yeah.
But what about when we play like Officer and a Gentleman? When you have a black person playing those type of roles that Obviously educated, smart, articulate. We don't get Oscars for that.
Fact.
That's the one that you guys seem to think is so unique. He's so well spoken. Can we get an Oscar when we play those kind of roles?
Facts. What are some movies, Shaquan, that you would like to see on screen? Some visuals that you would like to see on screen in the future?
Just more. I think more Black history TV shows or movies per se. That doesn't portray us as the athlete. That doesn't portray us as, like we said, Uncle Phil was a judge.
Yeah.
Bill Cosby was, what was Bill Cosby?
A doctor.
A doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Just more stuff that we can learn from.
Right.
Not more stuff we've already seen or they take, and create something else, but just more things that educate us.
Right.
I would say that more things that educate us, things that I can watch with my kids and I can be educated on, they can be educated on.
I want to see them show more uniqueness in things that our youth should or could participate in. We got the sports.
Yeah.
We got the sports movies. I grew up watching the artistic movies and TV shows like Fame and Breaking and Beat Street with the street graffiti and all that good stuff. One of my favorite movies is Achilles B, with the spelling bee. The Great Debaters is one of my favorite movies where you're watching these educated blacks debate as an educated level and intellectual level. I would like to see Drumline, even though it was geared towards the drums, which we love the drum ever since Roots.
Right.
That's what we do. But I would like to see more uniqueness in terms of what blacks are into. I like movies where blacks, actually I watched one the other night where the kid wanted to be a filmmaker. He wanted to get into film and got caught up with a thug and
Monster.
Awesome movie. But it showed what you could be and then it pulled them back in of what you are likely to be because this is what your neighborhood, your environment, people like you typically do. I want to see us in a different light. I want to see the kid that wants to be a mechanic. Yeah. I want to see the kid who wants to grow up and be a bus driver, a school bus driver. Listen, to be successful, you don't have to be this extraordinary superhero. Yeah. You can be a regular person. You can be the cashier at Walmart and still be unique if that's where your passion is. I want to see that. I want to see somebody wanting to play the clarinet at the school band. It's unpopular. I want to see that because these are things that there's a child somewhere that want to do these things. It's just not popular. Right. I want to see that.
So you see people, there was a show on Netflix where two black students are actually that play instruments like that and actually trying to be a part of the opera, which is good. I think there's a fine line between genius and insanity.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Also a fine line between awareness and glorifying. I want to see more glorification towards things that we already are. It's just not shown enough. Whether that's doctors, lawyers, business owners, astronauts, chemists, judges, bankers, brokers, anything that can be heroes without being a part of DC and Marvel.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I just want to see more of a variety of things, not as supporting actors. I want to see the main role being these black actors in this way. Also, the black family where the mother and the father are both successful.
That's right.
And they're raising the kids to be successful after the grandparents were successful. And I want to see it without scandal.
Right.
I don't want to see every time you put these black politicians on the television or that there's some scandal that has to be involved with it.
Or somebody black trying to bring them down.
Yeah, I don't want to see that. because there are shows where white people are like that and there's no scandal around it. Also, again, I want to see, we have to be very careful of being educated by movies. So when you watch the movie in the beginning, say, based on a true story, this means only 2% can be fact-based. The 98% can be Hollywood. We have to be very careful at just allowing movies to educate us.
That's right.
So I want to see more 98 to 100% fact-based movies on Black history rather than the 2% you try to give us and the 98% drama you try to give us. So when you look at the Harriet movie, a lot of it was fact-based.
That's right.
But when you look at Hidden Figures, a lot of it was fact-based, but I want it without the white savior.
That's right.
The character that played Kevin Costner in that movie didn't exist. The African Americans didn't need a white savior. If you watch The Help was supposed to be a fictional story, but we know it was a non-fictional story based off one of the maids that actually wrote the story.
That's right.
But they created a white savior of this white lady writing it for them and bringing it to people. We don't always need a white savior in movies to do things for Black people, because it makes the shade, okay, they need a white person on their side for them to get things done. That's not true.
That's right.
That's not true. That's not accurate history.
And a lot of people think that that's why the civil rights movement was successful, is because you had white Americans start dying for the cause.
Right.
Listen, I'm with you. You don't need to have anybody else be a part of it in order for it to be legitimate.
Right.
You don't need it. You don't need that savior. And I'm with you. The Kevin Costner character did not exist in Hidden Figures. There was nobody to stand up for when she said she got tired of going all the way across to use the colored bathroom. There was nobody. There was no savior to come fix that.
No.
That didn't happen. You know, we suffered through it just like everybody. If you watch the Green Book, when the guy's traveling across the country, you guys watched that playing the piano? Yes. And had I don't think he was white. I think he was more Italian than anything that was driving for him. And he went to this home in North Carolina, I believe, to play. And he had to use the restroom. He's great going to the bathroom. Whoa, where you going, brother? Yeah. That's you out there, right there.
Yeah.
You know, and he says, if I have to go back to my hotel to use the bathroom, it's going to take about 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. We'll wait. He was willing to wait than have this brother use his bathroom. Mm-hmm. See, so at the end of the day, you don't have to have a white savior to do your thing. No. There was no savior for this dude in this movie. Mm-hmm. You know, he had to do his thing. Now, I mean, the Italian guy ended up coming around and really showing him that, you know, I suffered through the same things you suffered through. Mm-hmm. You know, so just because you're Black doesn't mean that you're the only one. Right. So I thought it was unique that it was no savior, but it was equality in bad treatment. Right. So
you it's not necessary. I want movies on Tulsa, Oklahoma. How can you have Black Wall Street and the only thing we're going to get is a documentary? Why not put the visual out there? Now, Lovecraft Country did a whole episode where they put the visual out there, but I need more. I need more. Marcus Garvey, there is talks that a movie is coming. Should have been happening. W.E.B. Du Bois, Tuskegee Institute, Booker T. Washington, Sojourner Truth, Granville Woods had over 60 inventions. Give me a movie. We let Wonder Woman have the Amazons when we know the real Amazons is from Dahomey Amazons out of Africa that fought the Dutch. That's right. Why are you giving me Wonder Woman and these Amazons? Come on, man. Come on, Black. Now, I love these two movies. Dangerous Minds and Freedom Writers. Love them. But there are some Black teachers that did the same thing. Come on now. We don't always need the white savior. Now, these two movies are incredible. They did a great job with these movies. Julia Roberts played her tail off in Freedom Writers. Love the movie. Shout out to her. But Elizabeth Thorne Scott, where's her movie? That's right. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are a lot of Black things. We talk about Egypt. We get mad when they come out with an Egypt movie and ain't no Black people casted in Egypt. Why can't we just make a movie ourselves? Why we got to wait on white America to create a Hollywood movie? No one, they ain't going to get it right. That's right. No one ain't going to tell it the way we want to tell it. Not just talking about Egypt. Where's our Kush movie? Where's our Mali Empire, Ghana Empire, the Nok culture, the kingdoms that were in Ethiopia and Sudan that also built pyramids? Where are their movies? We don't need the Romans and the Greeks gods? What are you talking about? That was a copycat from African deities. I don't need Percy Jackson to tell me about that. Come on now.
Go ahead with the Percy Jackson.
Yeah, go ahead. Come on now. Now I love the Percy Jackson books, but now that I know about my African culture and history, I know those Greek and Roman gods came from African deities.
That's right.
So where is that at? When we begin to talk about, and I don't like the stretching of the truth either in some of these movies. You know, you look at Glory. They tried to make the coach the white savior, and some of the players said, nah, that ain't it. He was racist too. He just happened to play five black players because he wanted to win. It ain't had nothing to do with him.
That's right. He thought they were the better players to give him a chance to win.
Facts. The Express, you know, they showed Ernie Davis coming out to play against West Virginia, and they throwing bottles at him. He said, that never happened. We ain't even play at West Virginia. West Virginia came to Syracuse.
That's right.
You don't have to stretch the truth.
And
Ernie Davis went through enough when you ain't got to stretch it.
You don't see them stretching the truth when they have movies about Thomas Jefferson.
No, they're going to stretch that. The cat and the mouse game with Harriet Tubman and her former slave master. Really didn't need it.
Didn't need it.
Didn't need it. We know, because now you got some people going around who ain't going to do their research to say, oh, yeah, she got in a shootout with her former slave master. No, she didn't. That part's not true.
That's right.
Part's not true. It's made up.
And that's the other thing is, don't be afraid to ask somebody, hey, is this part? Because I do it to you all the time. I did it when I got here about Godfather in Harlem. Like, is this part true? And then give me the information on why it's not true, why they stretched it, and to make it, you know, because it's Hollywood. So don't be afraid.
It's got to be entertaining. Yeah, they want to make it entertaining.
Yeah, we know it has to be entertaining. There's nothing wrong with that. But give us more fact-based than you give us drama-based.
Because you may find out with the facts, you got all the drama and entertainment you really need.
That's all you need.
You might not need the rest.
All you need. Now, don't be afraid to try to put some of these things out and the network try to shut it down. Nathan Parker, what he did with The Birth of a Nation and telling the story about the slave rebellion, incredible, because it wasn't whitewashed.
That's right.
It was not whitewashed. We have to be very careful at whitewashing, because like, when you talk about the Harriet Tubman movie, somebody had the bright idea to say, let's cast a white woman as Harriet Tubman. Nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
And he was right, because there was probably some people who wouldn't know. You know what I'm saying?
Or they wouldn't care.
And for all the people out there, do your research, do your history. The Underground Railroad was not a real railroad.
That's right.
I don't know. We shouldn't have to explain that to some people. It's not a real railroad. Now, in the new show that's on Amazon, it is a railroad and a train.
Underground. It is a train underground.
That is a fictional story.
That's right. A fictional story that has, it does have some truths in it.
There is truth.
When people watch it, I want you to pay close. We talked about this too. Talk about how they're killing the black men up north.
Yes.
And they're basically making so that the women can't have any black kids.
Yeah.
Which obviously did take place in the United States.
Right.
So.
Now I want to wrap this up real quick. And Dad, I'll let you talk in a second. But my last thing I got to say is, not just visually for movies, I want to see visual for books, more books. Now, there are a lot of black children's books now. Shout out to Jacqueline Woodson, Nikki Grimes, all of those type of people who are putting out black children's books. But I remember the reason why I wrote my first book is because I went back to my middle school years, and I remember going into the library, and there was a small section of maybe African Americans on the cover of a book. And I went in there looking for those books. Don't look like me. Black person on the book. What's this about? That's what I went in there looking for.
That's right.
I wanted to see a black person on the book so I can read it and be interested in it. And one author that was in the Bedford Middle School's library that I always looked for his book was Walter Dean Myers. He had a bunch of black books in that library, and that's what I was looking for. So I wrote my books for somebody to go in there looking for something that they can relate to. And we need more of those books. We need more of those James Baldwin, Zora Hurston, Richard Wright, Christopher Paul Curtis type of authors to put these books out so we can begin to see that image on the front of the book so we can relate to it and begin to educate ourselves on what's on the inside of the book. That's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, is because I wanted to see, because Walter Dean Myers inspired me to put those black faces on the covers of the books and really dive into the African Americans, because there were limited. Even if you go into Barnes and Noble, they have a black section.
Very small.
But it's very, very small.
Very small.
Very, very small. So I encourage everybody to look at that artwork. But Dad, I want to talk to you real quick, because you are an artist who drew this beautiful picture in front of my book, actually. How is the art important? As far as the drawings, because we know those are revolutionary as well.
Absolutely. Art's important because it is an expression. Mm-hmm. And anytime you get to express yourself, one, you got to feel privileged, because it's a day and time where our rights are becoming privileges rather than rights. And expression, freedom of expression, and then the uniqueness of the expression is very important. Mm-hmm. So if you have any, in my case, I've been blessed with being able to draw. And I'm not going to say that I always enjoy it, but when I'm motivated to draw, that's my expression. That's me able to express myself. Mm-hmm. And, so that's important for me to be able to do that. Going back to something that you said about books, I want more writers, more black writers.
Right.
I'm with you. But to have more black writers, we got to have more black people reading them.
Yeah.
So, and we're talking about books, physical books. I'm not talking about getting on your laptop or your Nook or whatever and reading an electronic book. I want to see some kids with some books in their hands actually reading physical books. Look at all these books. I don't know if you guys can see all these books behind us, but he's got tons of books. Books. You got to read some books, man. That is the best form of expression there is the ability to be able to read. Mm-hmm. And to be able to read a book of your choice, because when you read these books, you develop your own interpretation. Remember, we talked about film and movie. Film and movie is based on perspective. So the director, the producer, the actors are giving you their perspective. Do you ever get to develop your own in a movie? Not really. It's already, a lot of times if you watch the trailer, it's already leading you up to believe what the movie is about before you even watch it. Read this book. There's nobody telling you. You can read the preface if you want to, but there's nobody telling you anything about this book to develop your perspective. It's all you. Mm-hmm. When you're able to sit down and read, I know some people say, I fall asleep when I read. Figure it out.
Right.
Figure it out. But you've got to go back to being able to read the basics, man. Read the book, develop your own interpretation, your own perspective, and you will start seeing things in a different light. I think that's huge.
Absolutely. And not just black filmmakers, but white filmmakers would put truth in their movies. They just don't expect you to go research it to find out if it's true or not.
Exactly.
So you can find truth in the movies that you watch, but it is your responsibility to go do research and further your truth. So anybody that went out and watched Harriet, you should immediately went and read a book about it. Anybody that watched Hidden Figures, you should immediately went and say, I need to know more than this. Because 2 hours is not enough, because most of it is going to be the drama-based things. You have to go back and look at the readings of things so you can get more information on some of these books. So thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And we pray that everybody gets something from this, but we hope that whenever you look at the visuals, that you become educated and not just entertained. So really be very careful of because I love the dramas too. I love Snowfall. I love The Shy. I love all of the dramas too. But I'm conscious enough to know that I can't overload myself in just dramas. So a lot of the shows that I watch has real history in it, to where I can go back and read up on the history.
That's right.
Documentaries. There are a ton of documentaries on the History Channel about Black history.
Autobiographies are huge.
Absolutely. So we really have to get more in tune to our Black visuals, and that will get us some more in tune to our Black history. And when we do that, the Black future looks great. Thank everybody for tuning in. We love y'all. Peace.
Rest in peace, Paul Mooney.
I was going to say the
Rest
same
in
thing.
peace, Paul Mooney.